Good morning everyone, I'm Rose Jacobs, live from the Kalkine studio, and you're watching The Early Trades, a show where we share with you a glimpse of the Australian share market opening trade scenario, along with the global and domestic drivers triggering the market momentum. So let's get straight into it, starting off with the Australian share market, which has climbed 0.7% to 7,423.9 in the opening minutes of trade, with technology stocks leading the market higher. Shares in Kogan.com led the benchmark index, rising 7% to $11.69 after the online retailer reported an increase in gross sales during the September quarter. Bapcor climbed 6.8%, A2 Milk rose 5.6%, and Redbubble jumped 5%. Whitehaven Coal was the biggest laggard, declining 8.5%, while Beach Energy dropped 3.2% following its quarterly update. The global benchmark Brent closed above US $85 a barrel for the first time since October 2018, amid a stronger equity market and ongoing concerns around a worldwide energy crisis. The local currency leapt 0.9%, putting a US 75-cent handle within sight. The Bloomberg dollar spot index slid 0.3%. The yield on the US 10-year note was 4 basis points higher to 1.64% near 4:35 p.m. in New York. And breaking news coming from the cryptocurrency space, Bitcoin is closing in on its record high. Bitcoin briefly topped $64,200 on bitstamp.net as the first Bitcoin-linked exchange-traded fund in the US. The ProShares Bitcoin Strategy ETF and saw strong investor demand during its trading debut, marking a watershed moment for the crypto industry. Other important news from the RBA. The Reserve Bank's move to increase the cost at which it loans out April 2023 and April 2024 bonds appears to have been effective in pulling yields closer towards its 3-year yield control curve, YCC target. Amid a furious sell-off in bonds triggered by a high inflation point in New Zealand, the April 2024 bond yield spiked as high as 0.2%, almost double the RBA's 0.1% target. But after market trading, the RBA jacked up the cost of loaning out that bond from 0.25% to 1%. In London trading, the yield on the April 2024 bond dropped to around 0.125%, within range of the target. Bond analysts still think the RBA could intervene in the market this week to enforce its target and reaffirm its forward guidance. The market, however, is still testing the RBA at the shorter end of the curve. Governor Phil Lowe has repeatedly rebuked the bond market for pricing. And we'll take a very short break. Back with you in just a moment.
Property by Kalkine. Looking for a dream home? Well, that may sound easy, but it isn't. And from looking for a property that is the right fit for you in terms of cost and other factors, to zeroing down on the right mortgage plan, there are various aspects to consider. And for the latest slowdown in the property market, tune in on Kalkine TV with me, Sage. I will give the latest updates on the property market as well as real estate stocks to help you make the right decision. Keep watching Property with Kalkine.
Hello and welcome back. Rose Jacobs live from Kalkine studio in Sydney. Now let's look at some newsmakers from the opening bell. Looking at the stocks that are grabbing investors' attention today, mining giant BHP has increased its all-cash offer for Canadian miner Noront Resources to 75 cents per share, topping Andrew Forrest's Wyloo Metals bid of 70 cents per share. In a release to the ASX, BHP said Noron's board has determined that its new offer is a superior proposal and recommend that shareholders tender their shares to the BHP offer. BHP's new 75-cent per share offer represents a 36% premium to its previous offer, a 7% premium to the Wailu offer, and a 213% premium to Noron's unaffected price. Shareholders have until 11:59 p.m. Toronto time on November 9, 2021 to accept the increased offer and tender their shares. Moving on, Kogan.com reported solid growth in the September quarter, driven by an increase in Kogan First memberships and optimisation of its inventory position. Gross sales increased 21.1% year on year, but gross profit declined 1.7% on the same basis. Active customers grew 30.7% year on year to 3.35 million as of the end of September. The online retailer said it resolved previous inventory pressures and closed several inefficient overflow warehouses. This reduction in inventory levels led to the company significantly reducing its warehousing costs. Kogan First's membership base grew 171.1% year on year and 64.4% quarter on quarter to 197,000 as of 30 September 2021 and over 210,000 as of today. Next news covers the NAB. National Australia Bank has appointed James Spenceley as a non-executive director effective from December 1st. Mr. Spenceley was the founder and former chief executive of Vocus Communications, Australia's fourth largest telecommunications company. He's currently chair of two ASX listed companies, Airtasker and Swoop Holdings, and a non-executive director on the boards of Kogan.com and Think Childcare. And lastly, Adairs' total sales have been hit by mandated store closures across New South Wales, Victoria and the ACT during the first 16 weeks of the 2022 financial year. The company estimated that the value of total sales foregone as a result is between $28 million and $32 million, which is net of the benefit captured by its online channel. EBIT impact of lost sales are estimated to be in the range of $12 to $15 million. Year-to-date total group sales is 8.5% lower than the previous financial year, but online sales were up 15%. Most New South Wales stores reopened on October 11 and in their first week delivered sales growth, which bodes well for the expected reopening in Victoria in early November, Adairs have said. Well, that's it for the early morning trades. Stay tuned to Kalkine TV as we have many more shows lined up for you, sharing live updates across the economy, markets and sectors. I'm Rose Jacobs and I'll see you next time.